Excuse me. Welcome to Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Shattered Innocence Revised is a book I recently have written, got out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. Remember to speak up against child abuse. Thanks for watching. Please hit the bell icon to be notified. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate you being here. Yeah, I do want to get that out for you. And lots of love and appreciation of you. I appreciate so much. More than you realize. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, and supporting scholarship. And there's no need to do that one right now because, it's my story. I can say whatever and do whatever just because this is mine. This is my personal information. So, without further ado, I always like to mention a couple of Bible verses. I want to be sure to put Colossians 3:21. Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. I hope everyone's doing well. So today, I want to break it up into little sections. This will be part one of my story, and then I'll let y'all ask some questions as we're going along as well. And some things will be later on in some of the other parts. Um, so we can make it a lot easier to understand since my story is pretty lengthy, so much going on. Without further ado, I'm going to present. Somebody once reminded me I need to show people how to look for my book at Amazon because they're having trouble. People are having trouble. When you go to Amazon.com, you notice that I have all put right here, and I have Darlene J. Clark Shattered Innocence Revised. The only Shattered Innocence that's showing up, that's mine, is my old version. That's my book before this one. With this new book, Revised, it's got the same information in there, but some of it's been corrected. And then it's got the names at the back of the book where you're able to go back as a reference to find out who is who. And it's got a new organization called the Wonderful Rescue Foundation. There's so much in there that I added to that's very important to put to note. So you see right here, then I drop this down, and I put books. I go ahead and search again. Voila, there it is. It shows up when I put books. It don't show up when I have all. Only when I got books that are marked. So I'll let y'all know that. I heard a quote a while ago that I felt like it's very important. When life gives you 100 reasons to break down and cry, show life you have a million reasons to smile and laugh. That is so important. Without further ado, I'm first going to use my book as a guide. That's going to help me stay in focus. A friend of mine had written this for me to put in my book. She has God sent. I hope she's okay today because she actually is a crisis and trauma counselor working with young women breaking free from the bondage of sexual abuse. Let me read it without further ado. Amidst utter heartbreak, anguish, and indisputable personal trauma, Darlene fearlessly tackles the darkest of subject matter with a genuineness that embraces her fellow survivors. Undeniably, peeling back the layers of shame so many of us carry across our hearts. Darlene's willingness to risk the most vulnerable places of her own heart certainly brings healing to an unsuspecting soul, mine included. Personally, as a crisis and trauma counselor working with young women breaking free from the bondage of sexual abuse, incest, and sex trafficking, as well as being a fellow survivor of long term childhood sexual abuse, I find Darlene's faith and resilience truly astounding. Her continued desire to embrace survivors is a testimony to her unconditional compassion for those desperately hurting in the world. It is unquestionable honor to witness Darlene's immense courage, profound strength, and unparalleled determination when it comes to speaking the truth about childhood sexual abuse. This is a story we need to deeply hear. Her daring words shatter the silence, saying, "No more. Today is the day we break the cycle of abuse." This Darlene is shining an impeccable light on the blackness that penetrates an innocent light. When faced with the bleakest of humanity's treachery, shine on, Darlene. Shine on. So it was great humility that I introduced you to Darlene's successful journey of not only making it out alive, but choosing to thrive. And she is Mrs. Fairchild. Thank you so much. And we pray that you are still with us today, still persevering, because I know you are in South America, down there in the heap of a lot of that bad stuff. I know that people had broken into your home when you were trying to save some of these women. They beat you so bad. I pray that you are still with us today, girl. With lots of love and admiration to you. You will not be forgotten, no matter what. Okay, another friend of mine wrote this: "Shattered Innocence," inspired by the book by Darlene J. Clark, written by my survivor friend Andrew Scott. Once there was a garden fair, untouched by storms, free from despair. A child dancing fields of grace, dreams of light in every space. But shadows crept where light once lay. Stains of sorrow marked the day. A fragile trust was torn apart. A silent scream within her heart. The world she knew turned cold and stark. The laughter dimmed, replaced by dark. Each whispered word, each stolen glance, became the thief of her innocence. Yet in the shards, resilience grew. A fire burned where tears once flew. She bore her pain, her scars, her truth. A woman forged for broken youth. Her story speaks of wounds concealed, a battle fought, a strength revealed. Though innocence may fade, transform, from ashes rises the fiercest form. To those who listen, her voice will say, "Light can find the darkest way." Though innocence may shatter in part, courage will rebuild your heart. In this most difficult book, I'm sharing my private, tumultuous, torturous past to reach out to others. And that's why I'm doing this and reading this out to y'all and talking about this because I'm trying to share it. I want y'all to know that I am not seeking revenge, but I'm seeking to enlighten others about the trauma abuse inflicts upon its victims. I don't want revenge, but I want these victims to be held accountable to what they are doing and what they have done. And that's not written in my book. I'm adding a little bit more than what's in my book. Hi, Tammy. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. I put warning: this book is not for children. It consists of devastating trauma and abuse. It'd be tough to read because of some graphic content. This is a true story. Only the names and places have been changed to protect the people in this book. It's really the protection of, like, my family, my immediate good family. Okay? God willing, a story might make you think twice about turning your back on someone who has been abused or who you suspect is being abused. You may be their only voice or chance to survive. Speak up. Strength comes from the past. People continue to tell me to forget the past. It doesn't hurt me as badly as it used to. I am telling my story, one of survival, of courage, of hope. I aspire to reach out to others to whom this has happened. People should learn not to judge anyone. The worst thing I have heard is, "I would have done this if this happened to me. I would have shot them. I would have ran away. I would have kicked and hit them back." It's ludicrous. They didn't live it. They don't know what they would have done in my situation or anyone else's. The person has enough trouble surviving and coping without hearing someone say what they would have done if that happened to them. Do you know it's degrading? Surviving the horror of abuse is an inspiration in itself. For those who lived it, they know the hell. That's why my first book was called Born in a Living Hell. Each day was a matter of survival. Yes, some laws are supposed to help abuse victims, but in my situation, they didn't on numerous occasions. Whenever you hear someone's story of abuse, please do not tell them what you would have done. It makes a person feel worse. It is like saying you could have done it better and that we didn't do a good enough job surviving. To the judges, are you God? The Bible warns against judging. In Matthew 7 1 and 2, Jesus said, judge not, let you be not judged. For what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. We need to be grateful we survived the horrors. So please don't say what you would have done or tell the survivors that he or she needs to stop discussing the abuse unless it was you in that situation. I hope to show my strength by sharing my story. I hope others in similar situations can open up and talk about it. The worst thing a person can do is not talk about it. It gives the perpetrators more power. Let's get our power back and keep it. To note, God is the only reason I survived. It was by His love, grace, and mercy. This is why I think I was destined, and this is why I tell it. I was the first time I was on an online support group. One day I shared a piece I wrote named Regina's Triumph. In my book, it's going to be poems and other writings. The members of the group asked for my permission to copy and print Regina's Triumph. They informed me that the write portrayed how they felt. It helped them explain to their psychiatrists, psychologists, how they felt, as they had trouble explaining their feelings. I was proud to be asked this. My words would help my abused friends explain how they felt internally. I felt honored. So I permitted them to show their doctor therapist this literary piece. There were 3 times I'd given up writing this book. All 3 times within 3 days of me wanting to give up, devastating abuse happened. The first time I was talking on a popular messenger, y'all remember Yahoo Messenger? That's where I was. I was talking on Yahoo Messenger with a friend. I call him Cowboy Bill. He informed me about his friend, a police officer who had given him some horrific news. His phone rang while we were talking. A 4-year-old child overheard her mother and mother's boyfriend arguing. The little girl went to the mother's boyfriend. While tugging his shirt tail, she said, please stop fighting. He backhanded her, which sent her young body down a flight of stairs. She didn't survive. The second time I torn up my printed manuscript on a friend's site, which no longer exists, about a year earlier, Molly asked me to speak with her daughter who was being abused severely by her boyfriend. I tried to convince her to leave. She had 1 or 2 young babies at home. Regrettably, she did not leave. Close to a year later, Molly contacted me to inform me that her daughter had died. She was stabbed over 80 times. Molly asked me to inform her friends about the disturbing news. She gave me the newspaper link, so if anyone doubted the horrifying news, the link would prove truthful. Third time I gave up writing this book, a woman went to a local Texaco, so it's getting closer and closer to me, okay? A little while later, the mom told the clerk her car was stolen with her 5-year-old son in the back seat. An APB was issued. Deontay Glass was located inside the family's garage, deceased. It was too late to save this precious 5-year-old boy. He was found deceased inside the same vehicle his mother had claimed was stolen. He died from blows to his stomach for bringing home a bad report card. The mother's boyfriend, Kevin Pulls, was the abuser murderer. The mother was involved as well since she helped her boyfriend cover up this hideous crime. Now here's my story. That don't make a lot of sense in this. The reason why I felt like I needed to go on no matter what. I don't know what would. The Daddy Charles was in the United States military station in Germany. He met Hilda at a bar. Hilda already had two children, Gerald and Angelic. Hilda's parents adopted Gerald and Angelic, so that was the grandparents that adopted. Daddy Charles and Hilda had a child named Gwen in Germany. They brought Gerald, Hope, aka Angelic, also known as, and Gwen back from Germany. Since Gerald and Angelic belonged to the grandparents, Hilda and Daddy Charles possibly kidnapped them. There was another sister whom I never met. Angelic said the last time I saw Faith, I was in a baby bed with her. I saw these arms reach down and take her from the crib. Mom sold her in Germany when she was 18 months old. This is how it happened. Mom Hilda was seeing a man. She got pregnant and had Faith. Hilda sold Faith to her supposed father. Later, he took a DNA test. It proved he wasn't the father. Obviously, she had been with multiple men. He placed Faith in an orphanage. Faith was later adopted by French Canadians. The adopted father was serving in the military in Germany at the time. While in the military in the northern United States, Charles Jr. was born. Hilda and Charles moved back to the South with Gerald, Hope, Gwen, and Charles Jr. While serving at the arsenal down in the South, Marlene and I were born. I supposedly kicked Marlene out and was born 20 minutes later. I was able to come home from the hospital a lot sooner than Marlene. I don't know where we live, but a great aunt helped take care of me. Later, Hilda and Charles abandoned us for weeks at a time. Angelic and Gerald weren't allowed to cook, but the bottles needed warming. They couldn't turn on the stove, so Marlene and I had to drink cold milk. At times, the milk was spoiled. We had nothing else to drink, so we were fed bad clabbered milk. Can you imagine having to take care of 3 or 4 children still in diapers? Another great aunt lived nearby. One of Aunt Lottie's sons recently told me how he came and changed us. He made me laugh when he said, "I just got through changing one diaper, then another diaper needed to be changed." Marlene and I were infants. Charles Jr. was 1 year old and Gwen was 2 years old. Gerald and Hope were more than 7 years older than me. Back then, we used cloth diapers. Angelica and Gerald had to use T-shirts or whatever they could find. Aunt Zelda came over many times and would find us abandoned again. She changed our diapers, fed us, and cleaned the house before leaving. Hope and Gerald had good hearts. They were supposed to attend school, but couldn't leave us without someone to take care of our needs. When I was 2 years old, Daddy Charles was arrested. My sibling explained how Hilda walked in on Daddy Charles raping her. Hilda accused Angelic of trying to steal her man. Angelic was just 9 years old. Hilda beat her. Hilda had Daddy Charles arrested, but later bonded him out of jail. Angelic saw Daddy Charles return with a shotgun at his side. He was furious. He started shooting out the window. Angelic said, "He was trying to shoot you, Darlene." Shards of glass and splintered wood were flying everywhere. "I pushed you to the floor and shielded your body with mine so you wouldn't get hurt." I don't know whether Daddy Charles went to jail for this. When Marlene and I were 2 years old, Derek was born. While Hilda was still in the hospital, I had trouble breathing. I don't know what happened to Daddy Charles's vehicle, but he ran up and down a major road trying to get help. The police officer stopped and tried to give me mouth to mouth, but it didn't work. The officer drove Dad and me to the hospital. The emergency physician performed a tracheotomy and admitted me to the hospital to find a cause. I was there for 2 weeks. They couldn't figure it out. I later found out that I had been basically adopted by all the nurses. They sent me home with a big stuffed teddy bear. I was like the prized little thing at the hospital. They treated me so special, like I was important. That was sweet. When Derek was 2 years old, Hilda started abandoning the five of us, Gwen, Charles Jr., Marlene, Derek, and I, in a grocery store. Luckily, Gwen knew my aunt's phone number. She would come to pick us up, keep us with her until Hilda came back to get us about a week later. Can you believe that, y'all? I suppose Angelica and Gerald were in an orphanage. My aunt grew tired of Hilda abandoning us and her having to go to the store and picking us up. One time when Hilda came back to pick us up, Aunt Zelda refused to let Hilda take us. Mom Hilda and Daddy Charles got a divorce and a custody battle ensued, which my dad won. Daddy Charles met a lady named Sue. Sue had two children named Bart and May. Bart was 2 years older than me, and May was 1 year older than me. They married and later had a boy named Paul. I kept claiming that he was my baby because I wanted a baby brother. All I wanted to do was be a mommy when I grew up. That's why. Years later, they had another boy, John Paul Clark, who died the same day he was born. That's just giving the rundown of the family right there, the different members. And then I don't have faith in her as much. I didn't find out more about her till a lot of years later when my sister said that about her being in a baby bed. But then the rest of the family got to meet her, and she was fixing to travel from Canada to Florida back when I was married and meet the rest of the family. And my husband forbade me to go meet her, so I never got to meet her. So, chapter two, this is going to early years. In this chapter, I shared a brief rundown of my family dynamics. A lot of the information was told to me by Barrett's family members, okay? And by the time I was born, Angelica and Gerald were in an orphanage. Angelic, I don't have this in the book, but Angelic was put in an orphanage because of the fact that she kept running away from a police officer in Florida who mom had sold her to. And she was supposed to, when she became of age, marry the guy. Okay. They're already selling things. All right. I always thought it was strange for Gerald, which was no blood relation to my dad, for them to go ahead and let my daddy get him out of the orphanage, but he was able to have him and make basically a slave out of him, helping take care of us too. But I guess he'd rather be around some family members that was somewhat kin, because, since I was a half brother, right? I hated pink and I hated dolls. I abhorred being called doll baby, or cute. Y'all know why? Because all these pedophiles, they go ahead and, oh, cute, you're cute. You're a doll baby. Years later, I discovered why. It is graphic and disheartening for anyone to use toys for any object inside a child at any age. So I don't even need to say more than I think that explains that about the doll, right? Hi, Eric. Good to see you. I was growing from birth. I had to learn not to have emotions, don't cry. At times, I did cry when in severe pain from the horrendous methods they used to fulfill their sexual fantasies. To sell their child for pedophilia, child pornography is beyond sickening. Many years later, Gwen said, Dad never did anything sexual to you. All he did was ejaculate all over your face when you were an infant. I thought, do what? Say what? All he ever did was this? I didn't even know he done that. I was so shocked. I said, say what? Is that not proof of the sexual exploitation he imposed? We all know sex abuse escalates. We all know how he even raped my half sister Angelica. I also found out Daddy Charles had been in a brig while serving overseas for messing with kids. Why was he given an honorable discharge? Why was he a sergeant in the army? It's baffling how people can get that. At age 4, when Dad and Hilda were still married, Dad had me lying on the couch nude. I do not know where the rest of my siblings were. He walked up to me and I noticed he had a knife in his hand. And I don't know if I got trigger warning up there or not, guys. I don't think I do. So I think I need to put that up there. right quick. Go ahead and put this up there. Okay. He walked up to me, and I noticed he had a knife in his hand. He spread my legs, then he cut part of my private area. He didn't even apply much pressure. He then closed my legs and ate the piece he cut off. Next, I remember being in a tub of salt water. I remember the water being bloody. A few years ago, an OBGYN confirmed the surgical removal. She said that all I have is scar tissue on one side. That so she had authenticated that it's been done. Okay. Around age 3 or 4, I received a tall brown-haired doll as a gift. Oh, how I hated dolls! I was forced to hold it as they took a picture. Later, the doll's foot was used against me for their sexual pleasure. In a later chapter, I discussed the first encounter of child sex trafficking. I was 2 years old. Both of my parents were there watching and ordered me not to cry. I had to take it. This man bought me. So we go back to a normal time where there's a bunk bed incident where I woke up in the top bunk of a bunk bed. I didn't recall how I got there. I didn't even know where I really was. All I could see was blue glares dancing on the panel walls from a TV set. I was petrified. I said, so I always knew my twin sister Marlene had to be around. What I couldn't understand is okay, if there's Gerald, there's Bart, there's Charles Jr., there's Gwen, there's May, Marlene, and I, and Paul. Okay, how come? And then there's Derek. How come there weren't no other kids around? Where was everybody else? Why was it only me in this house alone? Where were all these other siblings? Where were they? The children were to be seen and not heard. I nervously whispered her name, Marlene, Marlene. Still, there was no answer. I assumed she would be on the bottom bunk. I got a little closer to the edge, laid on the railing, and whispered, Marlene, Marlene, where are we? I waited a little while, but Marlene did not answer me. I got braver and called out her name a little louder. Marlene, Marlene, please answer me. Where are we? I wanted to cry. I decided to lean over the railing as I attempted to gain her attention. I saw she was not in bed. I began worrying about her. This was a strange house. None of my 5 siblings were around. This seemed like a small place. I was used to bigger places, open areas. I was not used to confined places. I later found out this was a trailer. I was flabbergasted. I nervously attempted to back away from the railing and get back on my pillow. The next thing I know is wham! The railing broke, sending my small 7-year-old body flailing to the floor like a rag doll. I saw the railing lying on the floor. I knew I was going to land on the board face first. I woke up sitting in the emergency room with the doctor examining me. I could hardly see when I came to. The doctor was looking into my eyes with his flashlight as he said, She is okay. I wonder why the doctor said this. I didn't feel okay. I was confused, only understanding bits and pieces of what was happening. As Dad and Sue pushed my wheelchair to the car, one of them quipped, We forgot something. Dad went back into the hospital as Sue and I waited. At first, I could not see who was in another wheelchair. I felt a strange sensation run through my body as I recognized the thin girl. It was Marlene. I could not believe it. I did not know she was in the hospital. I did not understand why I was not told. I knew better than to ask. But Sue and Charles knew I was confused. Sue brazenly stated Marlene was in the hospital for 4 days with pneumonia. She ran outside naked in the snow and got sick. It was stupid of her, but she does stupid things. That's what my stepmom was saying. I was bewildered as to why I didn't know any of this. What's going on? I should have known. At age 7, we moved from the trailer into a house by a highway that led to a big town where Daddy Charles worked. A couple houses down, was a house built on a steep hill. It was so neat. We children, Bart, May, Gwen, Charles Jr., Marlene, and I, would go to the neighbor's yard and rode our bodies down the hill. It's so much fun. Then we got into trouble, so we were told not to go back on there. Okay. But according to my sister Marlene, what had happened, she said no, that Daddy Charles got her naked and then locked her out of the house. And she went and slept in the cold snow in the doghouse. She was not offered any kind of clothing, no kind of blankets. She was out there in the doghouse naked in the cold weather in the snow. She's no wonder she got pneumonia, right, y'all? Thank God my sister survived, right? Thank God. Marlene and I began first grade. We had different teachers. One time our classes were lined up in the hallway. My teacher, Mrs. Smith, asked Marlene's teacher, Mrs. Klein, to keep an eye on her. So this was, these pictures explained, like, okay, I'm a twin, okay? And there's so many people that try to say, well, that she's a pretty twin, she's a fat twin, she's a whatever. They want to compare. And I'm so tired of that. And I would not compare myself with her. I never thought I was better than anybody else, all right? But my sister's teacher, she thought that I thought that. We were instructed to face forward and not look behind us. Mrs. Klein's class was lined up on the opposite wall. A few minutes passed and I felt a small yank on the back of my hair. I kept being obedient and didn't turn around. A few minutes later, I felt a little tug on my hair. It hurt a little, but I still didn't turn around. A few seconds later, I felt a painful jerk. This time it hurt. Instinctively, I turned my head to see who the culprit was. Mrs. Klein saw me turn my head. She pulled me to the side and began reprimanding me. She accusingly said, "You think you're better than Marlene. You think you're prettier and smarter." Her words hurt tremendously. It was a lie. I didn't think I was better than anyone. I just wanted to be happy. I wanted things to stop being so trivial. While at school, I believed I would be safe. She further stated, "This paddling is really because you think you're better than Marlene." So I was paddled. After I was paddled, I was confused. What did I do so wrong? I'd done nothing wrong. Yes, I turned my head. A boy had pulled my hair, and yet I was the one in trouble. It was his fault for continually pulling my hair. Didn't she see him do this? She was looking for an excuse just to discipline me. The boy even tried to speak up, but she refused to let him talk. Mrs. Smith came back and asked, "How are my kids?" "I know they're good. I have good students." Mrs. Klein smugly stated, "I told everyone to face forward and do not turn around. I paddled Darlene because she turned around." I withdrew. My safe place was now unsafe. I stopped smiling. I would hide my face even from Mrs. Smith. I used to smile at everyone, but Mrs. Klein reprimanded her reprimand cut to my core. A day or two passed and I was still withdrawn. Mrs. Smith pulled out a chair and sat beside me. She said, "You are different since Mrs. Klein paddled you. What did she say to you?" I knew Mrs. Smith truly cared, but I was afraid to tell her. Telling an adult about another adult treating you badly had severe repercussions. She lovingly and confidently said, "It'll be okay. No one will hurt you." I felt like I needed to tell her, even though I was petrified of the consequences. My body was trembling as I answered. Mrs. Klein said she was not paddling me for turning around. Mrs. Smith had a concerned look. I fearfully added, "She said she was paddling me because I thought I was better than Marlene. She also accused me of thinking I was prettier and smarter than my twin. Maybe I didn't smile when people gave me compliments, but I did not think I was better than Marlene." Mrs. Smith hugged me as she comfortingly said, "It is not like you at all to think you're better than anyone else. I know better." She made sure I was calm before she left to the principal to speak with Mrs. Klein and the principal. Another day, Mrs. Klein smugly stated, You need to stop thinking you're better than Marlene. Marlene brazenly stepped forward, pressing her hands on her hips, and quipped, Leave her alone. Darlene's not like that. Mrs. Smith overheard the conversation and made a beeline to the principal's office. I never had a problem with Mrs. Klein again. It did not take long for Mrs. Smith to have me smiling again. She said, It's childish for a teacher to say such a thing to anyone, much less a child. Mrs. Smith was a true inspiration. She stood up when she saw a co-worker doing wrong. She did not turn her back nor look the other way. She brought sunshine into my life. See, that's where I got some happier tales like that, right? I'm going to get past over the part. That's the Benny Carl show. Yes, I was on a Benny Carl show. They do not record any of their episodes, so there's no way to go back and look into it. One time, my stepmom took me to a neighbor's house to put a permanent in my hair, and she was saying that this blue gel, the dippy doo stuff, was really for permanents. And now I spoke to a friend at a bar that did hair and everything, and she said, "No, that dippity doo stuff was basically just for styling. It's not really for permanent." And that's the first time I heard it not being for permanent, But I'm just saying that that's what I was told, right? Sandra was separating my hair to curl another portion. What she was putting a perm in my hair supposedly, and she was smoking a cigarette. That didn't make sense because put a perm in somebody's hair, the chemicals could cause fire or whatever, right? She said she dropped the portion of her cigarette, right? She said, "Oh well, I'm almost finished curling, so I'll look for the cigarette in a minute." I was wearing blue polyester pants. The lit cigarette fell between my thighs. I was about to say something, but my stepmom Sue put her finger to her mouth while giving me the silent motion. Sue saw it fall. She knew it was burning me. I knew no matter how much the burning hurt, I had to obey Sue. So I tightly clenched my thighs to put out the cigarette. It worked, but my thighs were burning feverishly. Sandra finished curling my hair and proceeded to look for the cigarette. She could not find it. She said, I know it fell, but I cannot find it. She then tried to force my legs apart. I fought hard, trying to keep my legs together. I was afraid if she found it, Sue would be furious at me. I was too embarrassed. Sandra forced my legs apart and was flabbergasted when she found the unlit cigarette. She nervously asked me, Why did you not tell me? Sue replied, Yeah, why did you not tell her? She put her finger up to her mouth again, motioned for me not to answer. Sandra cared and tried to soothe me. She sorrowfully said, I should have looked for it as soon as I dropped it. You put it out with your thighs. You poor child, I'm so sorry. I love this sympathy. It hurt me more not being allowed to respond. I had tears welling up from hearing caring words. After Sandra finished styling my newly permed hair, Sue and I went back home next door. We moved yet again soon after this incident. When I look back and see how often we have moved, I cannot help but wonder if it was because of another investigation of Dad and Sue abusing us. We moved into one of my aunt's rental houses until we moved again a few months later. It just kept happening. We just kept moving. At the age of 8, we moved to a new area. The location was approximately 30 minutes from our aunt's rental house and about an hour from where we had moved to. It was a steep, winding road. Along the winding road had dirt, rocks. It was dangerous to ride a bike down the steep hill. You might end up in the bushes. This is where my dad had a habit of taking us to a bridge. There was a lot of stray dogs that would come up. I'm just giving a brief one without reading it. Um, and he would take the dog, and we were on top of like the Tennessee River Bridge, and he would throw the dog off. And a lot of times the dog never came back. I guess it died from the currents or whatever. And then sometimes a dog came back 2 or 3 times, and then Daddy said about one, "Oh, it wants to stay here that bad, it can stay." So that's how my brother Derek learned. Brother Paul learned to walk. He held onto the side of the dog. I got to tell you about right or left. A lot of people thought it was horrible for a woman to be left-handed, right? They try to say, "Oh, that's of the devil." If you're left-handed, that's how they looked at it. I suppose some of the people. I kept picking everything up with my left hand. It infuriated Sue. She angrily yelled, "Women are not left-handed; they are only right-handed." At dinner, I picked up my fork with my left hand. I didn't understand why they were waiting so long to try to correct me when they never corrected me throughout the years before, right? It felt so natural. Sue looked so irate she could have thrown darts at me with her eyes. She roared, "Put your fork down and do it right." I thought I was doing it right. Here I am 9 years old, so why is she now correcting this after I've been in school for years? I did what felt natural and picked up my fork on my left hand again. It was difficult not to. Sue stood up from her chair, ran over, and tightly grabbed my right hand, forcing the peak of the fork. She jammed the food into my mouth. Oh my, it hurt tremendously when some of the prongs jabbed into my lips, tongues, and the side of my mouth. Tears began to well up in my eyes, but I knew better than to let Sue see me cry. Otherwise, she'll spank me, saying, "I'll give you something to cry about." A few days later, Sue told me that May was bringing home a boyfriend, Philip, to have dinner with us. May was my stepsister, a year older than me. Dinner time came, and I was the only one not eating. I watched Sue as she glared at me, waiting to see which hand I would use to pick up my fork. I trembled in fear, replaying Sue's earlier threats. She had yelled, "You best follow the rules and not use your left hand to pick up your fork or even your drink, or I'll spank you, company or not." I took a deep breath and slowly moved my hand to the fork as Sue glared at me with fury. I did it. I used my right hand. Sue would leave me alone for now. Thank you, God. May's boyfriend Philip asked, "Darlene, why weren't you eating earlier?" I knew better than the answer. He noticed me shaking while staring at my stepmother. She was seething as she got back at me. Philip said, "You seem like you're beating a lot. You seem scared to move." Inside I thought, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. But Sue laughed and said, "She's just shy." Philip replied, "I don't think so. I'm leaving after dinner. I don't want to see any of you except Darlene. It's clear you treat her badly." He was very intuitive for a 10-year-old boy. He never came back. We moved again soon after that. So this is kind of interesting about this church story, and y'all got to know I really wasn't taught about God prior. Okay, and this was age 8 or 9. We moved about 45 minutes to the city. It was a nice brick home with a fenced lot. Sue and I were in the backyard beside the clothesline when we noticed an awful stench. We soon found out the source of the foul odor was a deceased dog in the basement. Sue and I had put clothespins on our noses. I'm not sure how long it took to get rid of the smell from under the house. Daddy Charles drove us to church one Sunday morning. The moment my foot hit the gravel in the church parking lot, I felt a strong sensation. I am home. We went into Sunday school classes. I remember seeing a picture of Jesus nailed to the cross. It felt familiar to me for some reason. I was around 8 or 9, like I said. The teacher, Mrs. Kelly, started class by asking, "Who knows who that man is on the cross is?" I raised my hand. Miss Kelly said, "Put your hand back down. You don't know the answer. You weren't taught about God." She asked the question again. I wasn't going to lie. I knew who that man was. I raised my hand again. She quit. "Darlene, I know you don't know the answer. Put your hand down." Mrs. Kelly asked once more, "Who knows who that man is on the cross?" I kept my hand down out of fear of being reprimanded. I turned around to see if any of the other students had their hands raised. A cute little boy quickly lowered his hand when he saw me looking at him. Mrs. Kelly, confused, said, "I know a lot of you have been taught. I know you know the answer. So who will tell me who that man is on the cross?" I waved my hand enthusiastically, wanting her to pick me. Miss Kelly sighed and said, "Okay, Darlene. Go ahead, even though I know you don't know the answer. I proudly exclaimed, That's Jesus. Miss Kelly's jaw dropped. Okay, you know that's Jesus, but you won't know why he's on that cross. Who knows why Jesus is on the cross? My hand shot up again. Miss Kelly said, Okay, Darlene, why did Jesus die on the cross? I answered, Jesus died on the cross to save us from our sins. After Sunday school, I saw Miss Kelly talking with Daddy, Charles, and Sue about me. Miss Kelly asked how I knew. Daddy, Charles, and Sue both said, We don't know. We didn't teach her. We can't believe she knew all this. We started attending that church. I especially enjoyed Vacation Bible School. Sue began playing the piano, and we children started singing. We performed at other congregations. I was always the child standing closest to the congregation. I never knew why everyone stared at me. Imagine 8 or 9 children singing, and the focus was on me. Years later, I met a Christian artist group at a different church and spoke to one of the ladies selling their music. I told her my family used to be a gospel group. She asked, Is that where the mom played the piano? Well, 8 or 9 of you sang? I replied, Yes, ma'am. I asked, So you heard of us? She replied, Yes. I had your group was popular among the Southern Baptists. What happened to the girl who stood the closest to the congregation? I looked at her puzzled. She said, It was you, wasn't it? I said, Yes, ma'am. I was always afraid everyone hated me. She replied, No, everyone loved you. They loved your voice and how you rejoiced in God's love. Did your parents ever take the recording deal that they were offered? That was offered to you? They just wanted you. I was shocked. My parents always said everyone hated me, that I was an eyesore and a disgrace. I've never heard of any deal. I guess that's when we stopped singing. I was about 9 or 10. I can't believe this. It's time I stopped believing my parents' negativity and lies. Couldn't believe it. They could have made money from me without sickening, deviant behavior of child sex trafficking. Thank you, God, for giving them another way. Lord, I'm sorry they didn't accept that offer. Hi, Liberator. How you doing there? Thanks for coming in. So you see, they had other options and avenues that they could have used, right? They could have went ahead and received that recording deal and made money out of me that way. But no, they would get more money with child trafficking me, right? And these are supposed Christian people, right? From ages 9 to 13 seemed to bring on a lot of traumas. Maybe it's just the age I remember most of the abuse, torture, and devastation inflicted upon me. I cannot speak for my other siblings because this is my story. I'm not going to go and describe the house and stuff, but the life at home. Daddy Charles would summon all of us into a room. He made me step forward. He hit me in my head, knocking my 10-year-old body to the floor. He told my siblings, Gerald, he was about 17 years old and a kicker of the high school football team, Bart, who was 12, Gwen, age 12, Charles Jr., age 11, May 11, and Marlene, age 10, to kick me all over my body. I curled my body into a fetal position. As they were kicking me, Dad instructed them to kick me as hard as they could. They encircled me, kicking me at the same time. When they were kicking me, they had to call me fat, stupid, ugly, and retarded. Darlene, you're fat. They yelled, kick, 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 Dad ordered. Kick harder, kick as hard as you can. The sibling said, Darlene, you're so stupid and retarded. Kick, kick, kick. I can't remember when it stopped or even when I got off the floor, but I do remember waking up in bed with my aunt, and I called her Roadrunner. And the reason she was wiping me off with a wet cloth, the reason why I call her Roadrunner, even though she had no phone, right? It's all of a sudden she said that she had felt like she needed to be over there for me, that something bad had happened to me. And she would run from her home, which is a good 5 miles away, run all the way to where I was and start doctoring me. If that's not God's message, I don't know what to tell y'all, okay? She told everyone I was coming too. My stepmom came in. She was so irked at me because while I was unconscious, I had wet the bed. I'm not sure how long I was out of it, but they refused to get me any medical attention. So Sue would tie the wet bed sheet around my neck, making me wear that all day long. So at meal times, Sue or Daddy Charles called us at the dinner table. Back then, we ate at a kitchen table. We did not take our food to the living room as we do today. The table was the only spot to eat unless we had a picnic or ate bologna sandwiches. We usually ate sandwiches when we went to the park to play ball. There were 9 children and 2 adults, so we kids had picnic benches as our chairs at the table. We had our plate of food, but we all had to pass around the same glass of sweet iced tea. We were lucky if we had 2 sips out of the entire glass. On many occasions, Dad would be furious with me because I had trouble breathing. Sometimes he'll make me stop eating my dinner and get an entire raw onion and I will just have to eat an entire onion. That's it. I was not allowed to eat my plate of food. Those nights, my only meal was the onion, nothing more. And come to find out, with him getting mad about my nose being stopped up, years later, after my divorce, I finally got to go to an ear, nose, and throat doctor. And the guy said, "What happened to your nose back when you was about 6 years old?" I said, "When I was 7, I fell out of the bunk bed." He said, "No, this happened before that." I said, "Okay." He said, "You're about 6." I said, "Well, I keep seeing my daddy coming at me with a pair of pliers." He said the plier grooves were still embedded in your cartilage. So my daddy is the reason behind what my nose problem was because he used the pliers and twisted my nose around. So he did surgery and unblocked one side. He said that he thought that since I've been blocked since I was age 6, he saw so many tumors that I had a chance of having cancer. But I praise God that once he unblocked that side, it just blowed out. Thank God for that, right? On other occasions, Dad called out, "Darlene, you're a dog." And at the time, I had bronchitis, which they smoked, so they're real reason behind me getting bronchitis, right? The coughs from bronchitis are rough sounding. I also had a rattle in my chest. He ordered, "Darling, get down on the floor." I looked at Dad in shame as I did as I was instructed. I knew what was next. Dad bellowed, "Get on all fours like a dog." When I got into the ordered position, he instructed, "Bark at your food. Bark like a dog." I began barking at my food as tears streamed down my cheeks. Dad said, "That's not good enough. Sound like a dog. Bark loudly." Daddy Charles was so mean. He exclaimed, "Bark at the food that's on the floor." I was so humiliated. Tears were streaming down my face as I tried to catch my breath from crying so hard. He proceeded to tell me to go to my room without eating because I did not want to bark at my food. Tears were flooding down my face like a broken dam. I had no desire to eat after going through this turmoil. An hour later, I was called back to eat. Dad pointed to the food on the floor and yelled, "Bark at it, and it better sound like a real bark." I kept barking, and Dad finally said, "That's good enough." To further humiliate me, he dumped my plate of food onto the floor. Dad happily ordered, "Now eat it." I looked up and said, "I do not have a fork or a spoon." Dad replied, "Eat it like a dog. Lick it up, as a dog does." Occasionally bark and growl as if someone's trying to take the food away. I obeyed Dad because I knew he would keep me up all night until I did as I was told, sorry. So now we get to the thing about Steve Normandy. Um, I call Uncle Mouth was Aunt Roadrunner's. They were husband and wife. The reason why I called him Uncle Mouth was you ever met anybody and you hate to walk off when somebody's talking, but you don't have a choice because this person continues to talk 24/7, regardless if no one's around or not. This person still continued to talk. So I called him Uncle Mouth in the book. So Uncle Mouth and Aunt Roadrunner had a son. My cousin Steve Normandy was a heavy-set man. His body structure was one like Santa Claus. He had a lazy eye. He was a grown man. While I was still about 10 years old, I wondered why I feared him. To my dismay, I found out why. Steve still lived with his parents, my great uncle and great aunt. There was neither an indoor bathroom nor running water. I used to love wandering outside looking for fossils. They seemed to surround the small shack. There was a lot of junk that stayed around in which they tried to sell. As I was wandering around, Steve approached me. He grabbed me and started a game by swinging me in between his legs and back up. At first, it was fun. It made it feel weird when he started sliding me on his body. First, his belly touched me. I said, "This is not fun anymore. Please stop." He kept on swinging me as he glided my body down his private area. "Please let me go." I knew Dad, my stepmom Sue, my uncle and aunt and siblings were around somewhere. Steve jerked my arm as he dragged me into the back door of the small shack. His body language told me I'd better be quiet and do as he said, or else. He pulled me into the bedroom. I was scared to yell. Everything was happening too fast. He pushed me onto the bed as he gripped my right arm. Steve fumbled with his buckle feverishly as he pulled his pants down. Dad started calling my name. Steve was trying to pull my panties down as he exposed his shaft. I scared me. Do I yell? What do I do? Finally, after Dad yelled, "You better come now," my cousin reluctantly let go of me. I was shaking nervously as I bolted out the bedroom door. I rushed, afraid Dad and Sue were going to discipline me since I did not come right away. I pushed the front door as the door springs made a screeching noise. I was shaking so badly I took a deep breath as I climbed into the rear of the van. Then we left. I think my dad was about to ask questions, but Sue told him I was nervous and let me calm down. She matter of factly whispered, "You can tell Steve tried to do something to Darlene." So now we go to the birth of a stepbrother. Daddy Charles and Mama Sue were going to have another child, John Paul Clark. I was in school with my Aunt Zelda, and Aunt Lottie picked us all up. But to make things, he ended up passing away. According to a sister of mine, she ended up drinking something which made her go into labor, and the baby didn't live but 2 hours and died. That's all I know about it. Don't know that much more about it. I got more details. I wrote about what had happened during that, and I wasn't allowed to go to the funeral because girls are not supposed to be at funerals, according to my stepmom, so I was not allowed to say my goodbyes, okay? So here's Dad's version of hide and go seek, age 10. Warning, this will be hard to read and understand. It's going to be hard for y'all to hear, too, okay? When I was 10 years old, my dad came into the girls' bedroom. We all shared a bedroom as the boys did. Daddy Charles walked in with a 12 gauge shotgun welded at his side. I thought, "Oh no, here we go again." Dad said, "Who is ready for hide and seek? If I see any of you, I'll shoot at you." I thought one day someone is going to get killed. I believe Dad would cover it up by claiming it was an accident. "I shot at a squirrel or another animal, but Darlene got in the way." That sort of excuse. We all ran and hid. I wasn't sure where everyone else hid. I often wondered where they hid because they did it so well. I ran and hid in the garden behind a hard dirt mound. Dad was chasing Sue around the house while shooting into the sky. Sue was laughing gleefully as he chased her and fired his 12 gauge upwards. I briefly felt safe. I couldn't believe it too. I was thinking when he was shooting up there, doesn't that have to come down? Could anybody get killed from that stuff coming down as he had shot up there? It grew deadly quiet. I wondered where Dad was. I wondered if he was close to me. I prayed he got his mind on something else so this crazy, deadly game would end. I looked up from behind the hard dirt pile. I didn't see Dad. I drew in a deep breath and laid my head down on the ground. My heart was racing wildly. I was so thankful he wasn't around. I was thankful he hadn't spotted me. He always found me first. A few moments passed, feeling like an eternity. I decided to look up to see if Dad was around. "Oh no, Lord, please protect me. Dad saw me." He turned towards me and aimed the shotgun in my direction. I prayed hard. I knew I was dead. The next thing I knew, dirt went all over my body. I was shaking fearfully. After the dust settled, I noticed a rock right in front of my face. The dirt had covered it. The rock saved my life. I knew God was protecting me. Oh no, he's reloading and coming in my direction. It felt like everything was in slow motion. Dad was still approaching me while reloading his 12 gauge shotgun. I knew I was dead. Something told me not to run. I was to look him right in the face while approaching him. So I stood up and did as his inner voice instructed me to do. I couldn't feel my legs or feet under me. I felt as if I were floating. It felt like something was around me protecting me. I kept thinking, do not turn around and run. That's what he wants you to do so he can shoot me in the back. There was nothing to hide behind anyway. I kept walking toward him, staring into his eyes. I felt no matter what, I was dead. I felt I would be shot regardless. I walked up to him and he cursed. I wanted you to run so I could shoot you in the back. He said that, y'all. He come right out and said that. He cursed and said, I wanted you to run so I could shoot you in the back. Dad turned his back to me and said, I'm going to hunt one of your siblings. I need to kill something today. I was scared and shaking all over. Dad turned his back towards me. A few seconds later, he tackled me. He forced me to have sex with him. At least the other kids were safe for the moment. The craziness ended briefly. At times, if you're talking and you're going down the road, you get into a little bit of trouble, and so people would always blame me and say it was me. So um, Dad pulled over, and I got switched real bad, beaten real bad because they said I was the one that talked. So the lineup, we never knew what we did so wrong to warrant the supposed discipline. Dad yelled for his children to come to him. We had to stand in a straight line like soldiers. Stand straight, shoulders back, tuck in your tummy, stare straight ahead, chin up. Most of the time, he questioned us about who stole the money. No one stepped forward and admitted to being a thief. Dad would start at the top of the row, spanking each person, basically beating them. He said, I'll keep whipping and beating you until someone steps forward and confesses. Dad either used a belt, a limb, or a whip. Eventually, someone would confess, but they'll be beaten even more. Days later, Dad would remember where he spent the money. He'd apologize, but it never stopped him from doing this repeatedly. Y'all think these people are crazy? Put a one in there. But see, the next one was my dad did walk me up to be baptized when I was a little bit. But y'all could get the book and read that part. Some of this I'm just skipping over. And then there's about the tornadoes, what had happened in the outbreak of the tornadoes back in 1974. That went through several different states. It made me have an appreciation of some people that I didn't know that much about. And I did have a wonderful school teacher. Her name was Mrs. Weaver. She was my English teacher. She was a good role model. Miss Collier ended up paddling me because my twin sister stole my homework off my desk when she came in and said, teacher came in and said, whoever don't have their homework is going to get a paddling. So Marlene said, hey, you got your homework? I said, I always do my homework. And then when I turned back around, she had done grabbed my homework. And she said, so the teacher said, who don't have their homework? I said, I don't. It was there a few minutes ago. Marlene got my homework. So she said, well, that's not my problem. You should have kept a watch on it. So she didn't ask Marlene and said, Marlene, you got her homework? She didn't do that. I said I had to stand up and be paddled because Marlene stole my homework. and then there was Coach Chevy. He was the PE coach and the also the study hall coach, the librarian. Um, and he was also our Sunday school teacher, and I felt really close to him. And he took a break one day and said, if anybody talks the next day while I'm gone, the teacher is taking notes, and whoever talks will get in trouble when I get back. But nobody would tell this substitute teacher who the people were that talking. So when he got back the following day, he decided to paddle us all. We had to go to the gymnasium. You know, like people go walk on stage to get their degree. We had to walk on stage to get a paddle. If he didn't think you did it, you got, but he still hit pretty hard. You got one paddle, one lick. But if he thought pretty sure you did it, two licks. But he knew definitely you were the one, then three licks. It bothered me so much, even though he paddled me one time. I thought, well, I had enough, with paddlings and being paddled wrongly and everything. I just did not even hardly talk to him, even in Sunday school or nothing. I retracted from him. I was being abused terribly at home and everything. And so, I did not even answer his questions in Sunday school or anything no more. That kind of was in it for me. And then that summer, here's a talk right here. This will give y'all the example. We always knew what type of talk Dad was going to have with us by which room we were in. If he wanted everyone in the girls' bedroom, the military lineup was to be enforced. In the spare bedroom, where there were no beds or any furniture. All of us had to sit on the floor against the walls. This meant Dad was going to be threatening. We were all sitting as Dad ranted and raved. It meant the discussion for five of us: Gwen, Charles Jr., Marlene, Derek, and me. Dad exclaimed, "You are all going to visit your mom this summer. You all better not tell anyone about the abuses, or the next time you will not be lucky to live." I began shaking. I did not want to go to my mom's. See, I'd rather went ahead and took the abuse from them to go to my mom's. Um, but y'all find out more about that. At least at my dad's, I had a bed to sleep in. At my mom's, I had to get in the back seat of the car and sleep when they went to bed. They did not have room for me. They did not feed me and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So here's at the case. We arrived at Mom, Hilda, and Daddy Elsie's little two-bedroom shack in Daddy's LC Ford Galaxy 500. The small frame house was up on concrete blocks. There were three German Shepherd dogs behind the fence. In the backyard was another building that housed the washer and the dryer. There were three beautiful red rose bushes in front of the porch. We bounded up the 3 or 4 steps. The front porch had two living room recliners on it. We asked if we could go inside. We dared not to open the door until we were given permission. We were inside and sat on a red plastic couch. The living room looked cozy with a small fireplace. Daddy LC and Mom Hilda's bedroom was to the right of the living room. The living room was attached to the kitchen. The small hall had two doors, one for the bathroom and one for our bedroom. Of course, we five kids could not all fit in one to the bedroom. Gwen and Marlene told Mom Hilda about the abuse we had endured. I wanted them to hush. I did not trust Hilda for some reason. So our social worker would come and get us and get me and try to convince me to want to live with my mom, but she could never convince me that. So now they ended up winning the case, and we got back to the house. And when we arrived home, um, Daddy Elsie said, let's go celebrate." He had made us all get out of the car first, and while him and my mom Hilda had talked, okay? Y'all notice the differences in Daddy LC and Mama Hilda, okay? The other ones when I was living with my dad was Daddy Charles and Mama Sue, okay? But when you go back and look into my book, I got the references at the back of the book, okay? So then he said, okay, we're going to go celebrate. And we all climbed back into the car. And here I was, 11-year-old. But he said, Daddy also said, Darlene, get out of the car. You cannot go. The rest of the kids can go. You are not related to any of them, not even blood related. I thought this is very strange since I was supposedly a twin. Since mom was listed as a birth mom on my birth certificate, I'd always heard that they were my four full blooded siblings. Daddy O'Seed told me to go to a neighbor's and beg for food, and they left. They ate out and had a nice chicken dinner. I went to a friend's house down the road. I did not mention food. I was so hungry. My stomach would not stop growling and hurting, but I did not want them to think I was there to beg for food. I would rather go hungry. In which they did ask me if I wanted some food, but I was waiting outside and seeing that they were at the table, right? So I let them have their meal. And after they finished their meal, and I seen them do the dishes and stuff, and then I came and did that. I was not going to go and interfere with their dinner. My family got back and said their dinner was good. They were all full. They asked me what I ate. I said, my friend had already eaten, and I did not eat anything. And Daddy Elsie replied, I guess you could maybe eat tomorrow. Maybe. See? Maybe. I wanted to cry so badly. I knew it's not okay to ever show emotions. I did get close to him at times. He would be on the front porch drinking a Colt 45. He would ask me if I wanted one. Finally, I said I did. I drank one with him. We were best buds if I drank. I did not like that so much. I was only 11 years old. Most time I ate, I had to sneak inside and fix myself a condiment sandwich. Now I hate sandwiches. Okay, then my sister Angelica, I got to see her again and spent time with her. There's an episode of skipping school when my brother would not get ready for school, and I couldn't leave him at home because I was in the sixth grade and he was in the fourth grade. And if he didn't go to school, he still had to have somebody watching over him. So he ended up not going to school, and he ended up wanting to go fishing. And I had to follow him around and make sure, he was safe. And so I got me a stick and started fishing. And what I caught was a dead snake. I got to read it. I'll read it to y'all here. I finally got a tug on my line. I saw my bobber go below the water. I jerked it up. Oh my, what is this on my line? It is not a fish. It looks like a stick, but it isn't. I realized what it was. I had caught a snake when I jerked it up. I threw my makeshift pole in the water and ran. My brother yelled, Calm down, the snake is dead. I replied, I don't care. I felt like this was my punishment for God for skipping school. From then on, if my brother refused to get up, I was not going to take no for an answer. I laugh about this now as I remember how fast I ran the 2 or 3 miles home. I was all wound up. I didn't feel tired. Oh, man. Well, thank you so much, Chris. Glad to hear. Now, this is how it was so hard accepting things. And see, at the first year when I was there, we could sleep in the back bunk. Okay. So I did have bed to sleep in for a little while. Okay. But then when things started changing, when my birth mom told me I had to work, and she told me I did get a job planting tobacco. Well, I ended up with pneumonia and I couldn't go to work. I had to stay home and I asked my twin sister if she would tell the boss, hey, she's sick with pneumonia. She can't come in. But she never did tell him. So about a week after I got better, I went back to work and they says, you're fired. You didn't call in. You didn't. I said, we don't have a phone. I asked my twin sister to call. He said, well, she didn't uh, let us know when she came. I said, I'm sorry, I asked her to. And she said, well, I'm quitting work. I said, well, can I at least take over her job? And he said, no. And it really hurt me bad. And then my mom came home from work and she said, well, you got to work. If you want to eat and put something in your stomach, because we're not going to feed you. If you want to eat, you need to go out there and prostitute yourself. I refused to do it. I just walked all over town, and I did go to grocery stores and ask if at least to try to clean up some around or anything. I was looking for a job, but no one wanted to hire an 11-year-old, right? Because of insurance purposes. Or okay, I said I was tired of the abuse. I was tired of going hungry. I was tired of having to take care of myself at the young age of 11. It started innocently. It turned out a deadly game of risk, but I did not care. I thought if I died from it, that it was just my time. I doubted anyone would miss me. No one except people at school had seen me for days. I felt so alone. I had been so used to not eating that I could not eat at school. Whenever I opened the doors to the cafeteria, the smell of the food was nauseating since I was not used to eating anything except mayonnaise, ketchup, salt, and pepper sandwiches. That is all I usually had daily, and I was not going to beg for food. So when my mom was off to work, she was at work at about 48 miles away. So when I got home from school, I was able to go into the house real quick and made myself a condiment sandwich, mayonnaise, ketchup, salt, and pepper. At times, she did have the peanut butter jelly combination things. I did that occasionally. But basically, the 2 years that I lived with her, that's all I had was mayonnaise, ketchup, salt, and pepper sandwiches. I was tired of being a twin. I was tired of people comparing my twin to me. I was me. I was an individual. I wanted to be myself. I grew tired of people saying I was smarter and prettier twin. It might be a compliment to some, but I just wanted to be me. I wondered if Marlene had ever felt the same way. A year later, I found out the answer to this question. Seemed any time someone asked when my birthday was, Marlene would come up out of nowhere saying, "Don't forget it's my birthday too." I would reply, "Of course, they know we are twins." It infuriated me. So we lived right beside the railroad tracks. The train would usually be unloaded quickly. I had to walk to school. When I was at the other school, the bus would pick us up. My siblings had friends who took them to school, but no one would offer to take me. I had to walk to school even in the storms. And this is in northern Florida. One time I asked Gwen if I could ride with her and her friends. When I asked, she and her friends laughed. The driver told me they would be glad to take me, but Gwen locked the door and instructed her friend to drive. I knew I would take them. I did not understand all this daily cruelty. My entire life was mostly cruel. One day a train was at a standstill on the tracks, blocking my way to school. I needed to get there. I did not want to be late. I decided to crawl under the train, but I tried not to get my clothes dirty. I was nervously thinking about different things, such as what if the train starts moving? Would I have time to finish getting to the other side without getting hurt? Will anyone tattle on me? Phew, I made it. I went to school that day. Later, I was playing hopscotch on the sand near the train tracks. I drew out the hopscotch board. Another train came and stopped. I started watching and paying attention to how the train moved when it started. I kept my eyes on the wheels on the train track. Soon, I would notice the rhythm of the trains. Another train stopped. I decided to see if it was okay if I went under the train and did. Again, I did it. It felt exhilarating. I noticed it was still at a stop. I heard the engine turn on. I wondered how many times I could get one side to the other side before it would go too fast. I kept playing that dangerous game numerous times. I stopped playing it after I tripped and slid. Rightfully, my foot got hung between the track and the wood at the railroad crossing. Frantically, I tried removing my foot before the train ran over it. Luckily, I got it out in time. My shoe was still stuck before the rail between the rail and the wood. I quickly retrieved my shoe. I fled away from the train. I knew how lucky I was to escape injury when I played this foolish game. I found out years later a neighbor told Mom Hilda about me repeatedly going back and forth under the trains, eventually, even when they began to move. Hilda informed her that it was okay. She was tired of me anyway. I laughed about it. I never wanted to live with her anyway either. At the time, I did not understand why I was apprehensive towards her. It did not take long for me to understand the reasoning. I had more pride in myself than to succumb to Hilda's wishes. When push came to shove, I cared. I stopped it. I knew I had to like me for me. I knew when I grew up, I knew how I would love to treat my kids. I would daydream about having kids, taking care of them and their needs at 3 and 4 years old. I would hold them, kiss their cuts and ouches, and comfort them when they had a nightmare. Finally, and most importantly, I would listen to them. By doing this, my children would know they mattered and their needs would be met. Here's where I was still in Florida, and my sister Gwen had a boyfriend. His name is called him Travis Stover in here. My sister Angelic was visiting yet again. Well, visit Gwen and Travis went to look into the empty house 2 doors down to see how the rooms looked. When they came back, I wanted to see it for myself. Travis volunteered to go with me in case I was too short to see in, offering to lift me if I needed. I could see inside the spacious rooms. I remember the short set I was wearing. My shorts were blue plaid. The light blue T-shirt matched perfectly. After I viewed the last room, he started playing with my shorts. I fought, but Travis was stronger than me. He undid my shorts hurriedly and proceeded to lick me. I kept trying to push him away, but regrettably he won. I saw my stepdad, Daddy LC, going to the garage behind our house. I wanted to scream, but I feared Travis might hurt or kill me see, I needed to be Daddy LC might hurt or kill me since he was on probation for murder. Gwen rounded the corner and saw her boyfriend doing this to me. She shouted angrily, I'm going to tell. Travis ran after her. I was so petrified, so I hid in the cow pasture in front of our house. Eventually, I decided to go inside. I was afraid of what might happen, but a sigh of relief when I realized Gwen hadn't told anyone. I'm glad I got to go back and visit my sister Angelic. Then I had a hearing test in which I failed because when I lived with my dad back before I moved from Germany, to Florida, uh, my brothers and dad would have firecracker battles, and they would stand behind hay barracks type stuff. And when I rounded the corner, my brother threw one at me, and one landed in my hair. I couldn't get it out of my hair in time, and the firecracker blew up right beside my ear. Thank God, I still have my hearing. But I really couldn't hear too good for a while. I had to read lips. It was horrible. I remember seeing my dad. He came up to me and dusted that off and then said, You're okay. But I seen him murmur the words, I seen the mouth move, but I could not hear him. I don't even recall when I could finally start hearing. But I wasn't taken to the doctors to find out how it damaged me. And I found out when I took that hearing test first one, the reason why I failed, okay, if I heard it in my right ear, I raised my right hand, okay? And I failed the test. So the next time when I retook the test, if I heard it in my right ear, I raised my left hand, and I passed the test. So then I knew that it kind of rewired my hearing thing with that explosion next to my ear. So I had to be the doctor to myself and say that that's what happened to my hearing. And so the move back with Dad. Daddy LC drove Marlene, Charles Jr., and me back to meet Dad where we lived with Mom Hilda and where Dad and Mom Sue lived. Mom wanted to come. Marlene wanted to come with me to keep the twins together. It was a pleasant surprise. Their behavior had improved immensely. They had moved from where we lived with them last. Dad and Sue still had the same jobs. Things seemed strange at the new place we were living in. We lived beside an old shack. We did not have as many animals as we did before. The move to Mom Hilda's and Daddy Elsie's place. Now we had chickens, ducks, dogs, and some stray cats. I could not believe it. Dad was not shooting these animals. He fixed feast. He did not make me bark at my food anymore. We sat down at the table like a normal family. A lot changed for the better. We had our drinks with our meals, our own personal drinks. There was laughter and smiles. It was very nice. We had a lot to do because Gerald was getting married in a few days. Gerald's wedding was outside. It was beautiful. The bridal arch was adorned with beautiful white flowers. It started to sprinkle, but the rain never came down heavily, so the wedding still occurred outside. Let me see, this right here. When school began, we were the only Caucasians on the school bus. This is very important to note. Our driver told us to sit up front to be sure no one bothered us. He was black as well. He was a nice man, although he was of a different race. I grew up in a time where racism was a big issue. I never downed anyone. I knew God loved us all. I used him as an example to love others. I learned not to judge by the color of one's skin. I empathized with African Americans and how they must have felt by being discriminated against. But now it's changed a lot. We know that it's changed a lot. A lot of times we get racism's everywhere, and we need to just love one another and be there for each other. Your daddy Charles' short-lived happiness. Y'all, this is shocking. I gotta tell y'all. I gotta read it to you. There's something very important in here. Okay, this will blow you away. All right. Daddy Charles's short-lived happiness. It was a cold November night of the same year. We came back to Dad Charles and Sue's house. We have been back since the beginning of June the first. June the 1st. I was not feeling well. I had bronchiopneumonia again. Dad told Sue to take the other kids to church. He was going to stay home and take care of me. And it's Wednesday night, so church is usually an hour long. So, peanut brittle takes a long time to cook too. So evidently, my stepmom took the other kids somewhere after church too, right? So we lit a fire in the fireplace. It was very hot in the house. He covered me with blankets, trying to knock my fever out. He made me some peanut brittle. He came back into the living room, offering me some of his freshly cooked candy. He said, I sent Sue to church because I had something very important to tell you. So this basically is my very last conversation with my dad before he died, okay? I am very sorry. I am sorry for the abuse I had done to you, but Sue made me do it. My dad was a cruel person. He was an adult, and he had a choice. He did it on his own. I mean, he done it way before he was even with Sue. He done it when, um, basically since I was born, the neglect and the other stuff that went on, the cutting me and stuff. It hurt me when he blamed others, but I thought it was a big step for him to admit he was wrong. He quit. I have a certain job at work to do. I'll be gone for only a few days. I will come back to you. Okay, I did not describe in there about the conversation. So let me tell y'all about the conversation, okay? He said that and he said, when I come back, I'm going to divorce your stepmom and I'm going to marry you. I said, Dad, you can't marry me. I'm your daughter. He said, yeah, you'll be allowed to marry me. I said, but the church won't allow it. Christians, you're my dad. How would the church won't allow you to marry me? And I'm 14 years old. He said the church would agree with it once they know the truth. Thank you so much, Eric. I appreciate you. So my dad was talking about marrying me, and the church will allow it once they knew the truth. So I'll explain that when I get in a few minutes. So he ended up going on. He died and stuff. So I'm going to leave it at this, and I'm going to go to the thing about well, years later, my twin sister. She was just around 2001. She told me, she said, "Hey, I got my records from when mom and dad fought for custody on us at the doctor." I said, "Cool." And this was before the HIPAA rules, so it was able to get it without even showing my ID or whatever. So I said, "Can you give me the doctor's phone number?" Because I didn't remember. I said, "You mean to tell me that's the same doctor that I went for pneumonia that actually saw us for the court case also?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "I don't remember even being examining for him." I said, "I've got so many blockages of memory that it's not funny." And so she gave me his number. They said they'll send me the paperwork. When I got all the files from that doctor's office, I only received one piece of paper, and it was just when I had pneumonia. They never sent no other paper about anything else. So I called him back and I said, "Where's the other paper from when y'all examined me for the courts?" He said, "Well, your sister was able to get hers, but you can't get yours because yours is sealed. I thought, huh? Mine's sealed? She said, well, you need, he said, well, you need to call Child Protective Services because they're the ones that had it sealed. I thought, "Well, okay. So I called Child Protective Services. I remembered the lady's name and um, I named her after, even in the book, maybe I named her after a car name because her name was a car name, okay? So, but it's a different car name than what I named her. So anyway, I called her and I said, "Hey," she said, "Hey, how you been? I've been wondering how you been." I said, "Why did you try to convince me to stay with my mom? That was a wrong thing to do when she was worse than my dad ever was." And she said, "Well, I thought she would be better." I said, "Did you not know I did not have a bed to sleep in, that I had to sneak home and crawl into the back seat of the car and sleep in the hot sun in the back seat of the car? Luckily, I didn't die, in Florida heat, thank God, right?" I said, and then she told me I had to work and I better get out there and prostitute myself if I wanted to eat. So basically, I was starving the 2 years I was there. "Oh, I didn't know that." And I said, "And you failed to tell me that my stepdad was had done served 26 years in prison for murder, and he was still on probation serving 26 years." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Why did you think that this was going to be a better deal? Putting us in with a murder, right?" Okay, so it's like, okay. But he was generally normally nice to me. The only bad thing I got to say about him, how he treated me, he went along with what she had to say. And then one time when I got on the school bus, he beat me with a belt in front of everyone else, and he was beating my twin sister too, because we didn't get to clean the house before we made it home from school. So we got a beating for that. But then Hilda had blocked that off. So anyway, going back to talking about the CPS worker, I said, "Well, how can I get those records? How can I get them?" She said, "Well, the judge might destroy them if he knows that you want them because it could put you in danger if you knew what was in there." I said, "Okay." She said, "However, if the judge does go ahead and share with you, you cannot show a boyfriend, you cannot share with a husband, you cannot share with your siblings, you cannot share with no one the contents of what's in this file." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." So after we got off I said, "But listen, but my family already knows about the abuse." "Oh, it's not about abuse." I said, "My family already knows about the being treated sexually on this kind of thing." "Oh, it's not about that. This is something that was done to you." And I thought, well, that other stuff was done to me, the abuse and all that, right? So after I hung up with her and everything, I started thinking, okay, let me go back. All right, so doctors had told me it's impossible that my twin sister is my twin sister because she has a Rh negative factor blood and I've got the Rh positive factor blood. So, okay, so there's one thing right there. All right. Okay. And the doctor had told me, said, it don't matter that the blood types are different. It's about the negative factorization. Said it's highly impossible mom had you both, that one of y'all would have died or both of y'all would have died. No way all three of y'all would have survived. Okay. So that was one of the things I remembered. Then the next part was remembered after the court case, my stepdad making me get out of the court car and not letting me go to celebrate after they won. And remember, he told me, "You're not related to none of them. Get out of the car. You cannot come too," right? And then the point three is remembering that talk with dad. They church would allow us to marry once they know the truth. What's the only way that a church will let a daddy marry the daughter? If he's not blood related, right? So Voila, there we have it. I don't care if I did my ancestry at my DNA at Ancestry. Um, I put it to did my family tree in there first. Put all that other information in there, and but I seen on YouTube they said if you have your test results back within 2 weeks of you sending it off, they didn't have time to process it. So I don't believe the results at Ancestry either. But much my family later on, I did go. Like I said, I stayed with my stepmom after my dad died and stuff, and we'll get more into that situation another time. I think I left a lot of thoughts going on here, and I'll say God bless. We'll stop at this. And does anybody have any questions before we end this? Because yeah, this is a question and answer thing. Okay. Any questions? So, how you doing today, Liberator? Are you still here? Everybody's here, and everybody, please hit a thumbs up here at YouTube as well. And me and my twin sister, we don't look alike, we don't act alike, we're nothing alike. She is the one that looks more like um, the family than I do. She looks more like mom. Maybe later. Okay, maybe ask questions later. All right, that makes perfect sense. Y'all think on some questions so the next time I come in here for the next part of this, I'll be glad to answer questions. I seen somebody else just now came in, so I give it a few more minutes. If somebody's got a question, let y'all type it in there. So, who of y'all sees why I don't think that's my family? Can y'all please put a one if y'all understand that? Thank you so much. Yeah, on a mission to get the truth told. So please put a one if y'all can understand why I'm saying that's not my family. 'Cause all the evidence right there pinpoints. Oh, and also I had was at a dating site, right? Got to tell y'all this. This was around several years back, at least before 2015. There's two guys at a dating site, and they worked at where I was born at. Okay, and they looked me up. Thank you, Chris. They looked me up and said, "Oh, we can no longer talk. If they find out you're still around, um, you'll be in danger." Okay. All right. So y'all, please pray for my safety on getting this information out there. But I'm tired of not telling the truth. I hope I have answers before I do go, but I'll pray for my safety, please. But they said you'll be in danger, so we can no longer talk. Okay. The second one said that I'll be in danger, but also said you've been missing since you were 15. Okay. And then I had another one that met me since I moved here to Tennessee, and he was a bounty hunter for the United States government. So he said he got my information. He went back home. He typed in at that website, because I'm not going to divulge where it's born, okay, for my own safety reasons. He typed in my name, and it said access denied, access denied, and a big uh, square, rectangle, or whatever. You know, he said then his computer shut down. So then he gets a call, and it's his boss in Washington, and he said it's a need to know basis, and he didn't need to know. So if y'all don't think something's wrong here, something is terribly wrong here. Whatever they done to me is high up in the government. It's messed up. But thank you so much, Chris, for the compliment. So now, do y'all really understand even more so why my disbelief now knowing on who I really am? Thank God I've got a better father than what I had on earth. I got the good Lord above. You know that? I don't want nobody to feel sorry for me or anything like that because God brought me through all this. He told me that I am worthy. I am valuable. And like I read that little thing before we started, it said, when life gives you 100 reasons to break down and cry, show life you have a million reasons to smile and laugh. I smile and laugh because, look, I made it this far. All the times they tried to destroy me, it didn't work. So then I guess where we'll leave on next. We'll talk about, we'll go into the move um, that had happened after my stepmom because that's where it gets a little bit deeper. And then, see, some things I'm holding off from talking about to when, like it's in my book, it's when I had uncovered it and came to the realization of some things. So that's why I'm spacing out some of the other stuff, get y'all further understanding the way how I was seeing it. Okay. And I want to thank y'all for coming. Since nobody's got any other questions, lots of love to y'all and God bless y'all.